Hey there. Ritual here to give a big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. The magic of those family moments, that was you. And now there's new milestones to prep for in 2025. This new year, check clean, quality pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list with Ritual. We've done the research to create science-backed pregnancy support like our prenatal multivitamin, natal choline, and fertility support, all designed to be taken alongside each other. But don't just take our word for it. They're also third-party tested for microbes and heavy metals and Clean Label Project certified. So whether you're trying, thinking about trying, or already there, we don't have to tell you that prioritizing yourself can be the hardest part. That's why we're helping you get started today with 30% off a 3-month supply for a limited time at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I got to welcome you to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. Today is Tuesday. It is February 12th of the year of our Lord 2019. Welcome already to Mary Brockman, Dave Milner, and one viewer in the chat room. You had a belly up to the bar, we've kept your seat, and it is great to see you back. Angel is going to be your bartendress tonight. She pours with the best of them. The lava lamp is in fact lighted over here to my left, your right, indicating that you can listen and chat at shrmedia.com. You can watch the show simulcast in two locaciones. It's Italian for location. You can go to the SHR Media YouTube channel, or you can go to the SHR Media Facebook page. This will be really interesting because now Jersey Joe is back, and initially when Jersey Joe and I were having our shows back to back, YouTube was kind of screwing things up a little bit. So yeah, you can go to YouTube. It seems the most reliable, much as it pains me, the most reliable place is going to be Facebook, SHR Media Facebook page, if you happen to be on Facebook. God, the song is over already. I gotta say this, though, that we don't water our drinks, just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all right here at the saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All we ask is that you flush the damn toilet, jiggle the handle, and please do not forget to tip your waitress. Welcome to the Alaskan as well. And one viewer who will remain masked because, unlike the federal government, we do not unmask people here. This is going to be interesting because it looks like Jersey Joe is back on SHR. I haven't listened to him yet, but I'd heard rumors of Jersey Joe, and apparently he is, in fact, he has returneth. But for the first hour, what we're going to do is we're going to talk to Dave Milner, and we're going to talk to him tonight about, we're going to talk to him about the United Kingdom, the UK, the EU, and all the craziness, the wacky political chaos that's going on right now across the pond in Europe. And I believe that we have Dave MILNER, otherwise known as the unpleasant blind guy, who really isn't. I mean, okay, let me quantify that. Yes, he's blind, but no, he's not unpleasant. You'll discover after talking to him here for the first hour that actually Dave MILNER is rather quite pleasant. So welcome back to the show, Dave MILNER, sir.
Mr. BZ, thank you for your welcome back. And hello to everyone. Yes, I'm here as is Fred, my seeing eye chameleon. He's become very fond of your show, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So,
I'm going to go over here right now, and oh darn, I've got the camera on Clint's chair right now. You can't see Clyde. Clyde is actually the official mascot of the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. But Clyde's in the dark. The on-the-air show, the on-the-air sign is there. But unfortunately, you can't see Clyde. And then last week, Dave and I had a discussion, a tete-a-tete back and forth. And I said, you know, people have like comfort animals, etc. And I thought, let's see, if Dave could have a mascot, what would be the perfect mascot for Dave? And I came upon a seeing eye. Well, first I thought a seeing eye salamander. Then I thought, no. That's going kind of in the right direction, but not precisely the direction that we need to go.
Too close to gerrymander.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought, oh, a seeing eye chameleon. How does that rock? That rocks because if a seeing eye chameleon can't see everything that there is to be seen, there's something seriously wrong. And the other thing I thought, okay, it's small, compact, doesn't eat a lot, and doesn't bark. If there's one thing you have to say is that a seeing eye chameleon is very quiet and easy to transport. So now you have yourself a seeing eye chameleon, and its name is?
Well, his name is Fred, and I've actually had him for years. So you really just kind of outed him.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I've had him for years, but no one has obviously been able to see him. I mean, he always rides around on my shoulder or other convenient places. He's with me all the time. And some people may ask, well, functionally speaking, how can a chameleon actually be a seeing eye animal? Because they can't do things like get in front of you when you're about to cross a busy street,
right,
or something like that.
Okay.
But the thing is that Fred is telepathic. He lets me know things telepathically, including where the pretty girls are, which is really very helpful.
Listen, that is an aspect that is not to be diminished at all. Hey, welcome to Mike in chat. Mike just stepped into chat. Hey, before we go anywhere, Dave MILNER, can you tell us, pretty please, where you can be found in...
Big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. This new year, get clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list, including Ritual's best-selling Essential Prenatal Multivitamin, designed with 12 traceable key ingredients to support a healthy pregnancy. With big changes coming up, take the small steps now and start today with 30% off a 3-month supply at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Hey there. Ritual here to give a big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. The magic of those family moments, that was you. And now there's new milestones to prep for in 2025. This new year, check clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list with Ritual. We've done the research to create science-backed pregnancy support like our prenatal multivitamin, natal choline, and fertility support, all designed to be taken alongside each other. But don't just take our word for it. They're also third-party tested for microbes and heavy metals and Clean Label Project certified. So whether you're trying, thinking about trying, or already there, we don't have to tell you that prioritizing yourself can be the hardest part. That's why we're helping you get started today with 30% off a 3-month supply for a limited time at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
various bits of social media and also like Twitter or Facebook or any place that you need to go to announce your presence, sir. Go.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm Dave Milner on Facebook, the Tea Party community when it's working, and MeWe, and a Magador on Trump Town and on Gab. And my show, by the way, can not only be heard here on the SHR Media, the mighty SHR Media, but it can also be heard through the Western Free Radio Network. So there's a lot of places where you can get hold of it.
Okay, outstanding. And also, now when can your show be heard on SHR?
1 p.m., Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, and new shows on at midnight Eastern on SHR Media. And everything radiation there. I'm also on EDL Radio, English Defense League Radio, which is on blogtalkradio.com. And maybe very soon, there'll be a bit of once I finish it with a project, there may be a bit of a merging between the two. So we'll see what happens with that. But, yeah, expanding all over the place, including expanding SHR Media's presence.
Okay, now you mentioned EDL, which is the English Defense League, and that's that's a peripheral aspect of why it is that you're here tonight. Can you explain to folks what EDL Radio is and what the English Defense League is?
Well, it's kind of odd. I just sort of dropped into it. I mean, obviously, as an American, I'm interested in freedom movements wherever they are, and this one came to my attention. It is basically a people's civil rights movement. This is a group of people who, years ago, they started out in 2009. This is their 10th year. They started in 2009 when a group of British military people were coming back. British soldiers were coming back from Afghanistan, and there was a large demonstration of Mohammedans who were calling them baby killers and throwing things at them and things of that nature. And Tommy Robinson, who became the leader of the EDL at the time, went up and confronted the Mohammedan protesters and did things like tear down their ISIS flag and burn it. And thus the EDL was born to oppose the rise of Mohammedanism in the UK, which has included things like industrial scale, child sex slavery, and things of that nature. And so it basically is there. It basically is there to say to the British government that the people of the United Kingdom will not be overrun by a Sharia regime, which the UK government has certainly become a Sharia-compliant regime. Well, there you are. And EDL Radio was started by Jeff Mitchell, who was basically what they call a foot soldier. He would go to the demonstrations. I have to stress that they are nonviolent demonstrations. They march, they chant, they sing. They make speeches, things of that nature, but they are never violent. They will defend themselves if they're attacked, but they themselves are never violent. This is not a movement like Antifa or anything like that.
Okay, what I want to do tonight is I want to do sort of a two-pronged attack. Dave is going to be on here for the first hour. And in the first hour, Dave and I are going to talk about basically all the political chaos that's going on right now in the UK and the European Union, and also with regard to Brexit and a lot of the political ramifications that are going on. I've got some audio cuts from Nigel Farage. I've got an article written by George Soros just yesterday. That I want to read to everybody, because I think everybody needs to understand one primary thing. The first hour, we're going to be over in the UK and the EU. The second hour, we're going to examine a similar fate that may perhaps await the United States with all of the political chaos by way of the leftists that's going on in the United States. And we're going to link the two, and Dave is going to help me do that tonight. So that's the purpose of the show. Because people need to know Altogether, too many people, in my estimation, have what I term historical Alzheimer's here in the United States. We fail to learn lessons, history lessons, from the past, and also lessons from things that are occurring right in front of our very eyes on two separate continents. And I would wager, and that's why Dave is here, to weigh in on the European continent, and also we're going to talk a little bit in the second hour about South America and that continent down beneath us, South America and Central America, and how and why all of this dovetails, and why we need to be wide awake consumers of news and wide awake bastions of liberty and freedom, because if we don't do it, basically nobody else is going to do it. What I'd like to do, Dave, and folks that are listening, and again, thanks to Dave in chat, Mike in chat, Mary in chat, White Mamba in chat, the Alaska in chat, one viewer in chat. Here's an article that just came out yesterday. This is from Market Watch. It's an opinion piece by George Soros. And I want you to listen very carefully, folks. I just found this before I came here. I want you to listen how this is crafted, because George Soros, if you may not know, is a billionaire who essentially almost shut down an entire British bank in the early 2000s, and is responsible for a major collapse of currency in the early 2000s as well. He is technically a Hungarian. He worked for the Nazis when he was a kid. And if you think I'm making this up, go to your favorite search engine and check into George Soros. Essentially what he's doing is he is a globalist, and he's the guy that backs, with cash, Antifa and essentially any leftist movement that you can think of. Dave Milner, can you give folks in your estimation sort of an overview of what George Soros means, or what he is to you?
Well, first let's start with a figure.
Big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. This new year, get clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list, including Ritual's best-selling Essential Prenatal Multivitamin, designed with 12 traceable key ingredients to support a healthy pregnancy. With big changes coming up, take the small steps now and start today with 30% off a 3-month supply at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
It was reported in, I want to say this was reported in the New York Times, that he gave something on the order of $18 billion to his various organizations. Now, this money is parceled out to organizations that filter down to things like Antifa and Hope Not Hate and things of that nature in both the UK and the United States. I'm sure Black Lives Matter got a chunk.
Oh yeah.
If it is an organization that promotes the one world government, or if it's an organization that tries to tear down national sovereignty wherever that nation is, George Soros has a finger in that pie. And I just want to say briefly that you define why I got into EDL radio and why I started paying more attention to the UK. It's not as if I hadn't already been looking at it, but it is because these things have ramifications in the United States of America.
Yes.
This stuff evil migrates. Evil always migrates. And if they're doing it over there, you can better believe that they're going to be doing it over here. And it's only a matter of time. George Soros, as we know, also is a big funder of the caravans that are coming up from Central and South America, and things of that nature. if there's a way that he can promote one world government with himself, his son, or his sons, his family, they are starting to edge out into all of this, and the various other unelected officials at the top, then he will do it, and he does it with massive amounts of cash. $18 billion, if you think about it. I haven't taken a look at the list, but my guess is that's more than the gross national product of many countries.
Without a doubt. Okay, let's start with the article. And like I say, when you hear this article, folks and Dave, please consider the words and the slant and the view in which this is written, because I think it's very important. Because he's trying to make you think one thing by very frankly telling you another. It says opinion. Europe may be on the cusp of a nightmare, but it's not too late to wake up. He writes, the sleeping pro-Europe majority must be mobilized to defend its values, George Soros says. Well, wait, on its face, doesn't that sound good? The sleeping pro-Europe majority must be mobilized to defend its values. Well, what values are those? I think Dave has already elucidated those values. He writes, Europe is sleepwalking into oblivion, and the people of Europe need to wake up before it's too late. If they don't, the European Union will go the way of the Soviet Union in 1991. Neither our leaders nor, let that sink into your brain just a little bit, what he wrote right there. Neither our leaders nor ordinary citizens seem to understand that we are experiencing a revolutionary moment, that the range of possibilities is very broad, and that the eventual outcome is thus highly uncertain. Most of us assume that the future will more or less resemble the present, but this is not necessarily so. In a long and eventful life, I have witnessed many periods of what I call radical disequilibrium. We are living in such a period today. He continues, the next inflection point will be the elections for the European Parliament in May 2019, this year. Unfortunately, anti-European forces will enjoy a competitive advantage in the balloting. There are several reasons for this, including the outdated party system that prevails in most European countries, the practical impossibility of treaty change, and the lack of legal tools for disciplining member states that violate the principles on which the European Union was founded. Again, folks, listen to what he's saying. Listen to what he's saying. The EU can impose the acquis communautaire, the body of European Union law, on applicant countries, but it lacks sufficient capacity to enforce member states' compliance. In other words, what he thinks is the EU needs to whip everybody in line. Where does the military fit into that? He doesn't say just yet. The antiquated party system hangers, those who want to preserve the values on which the EU was founded, but helps those who want to replace those values with something radically different. Okay, well, that radically different is what Europe had before it had the EU, so is that really radical? This is true to individual countries and even more so to a trans-European alliances. The party system of this says it all right here. And then I'd like Dave to weigh in. The party system of individual states reflect the divisions that mattered in the 19th and 20th centuries, such as the conflict between capital and labor. But the cleavage that matters most today is between pro- and anti-European forces. Says the man who has no worries with billions of dollars backing him. Dave, your thoughts so far?
This is hilarious. He says that Europe is on the cusp of a nightmare. He helped create the nightmare. He is the Freddy Krueger in this nightmare on Europe Street. Okay, he is, with his money, has helped back Antifa and other organizations of that nature. The nightmare came, and again, this is a similarity to the United States, when some European countries decided, hey, we want to bring in cheap labor. So what did? They brought in Mohammedans. And then the floodgates opened, and more and more came in. Germany now has millions of them, and they will not assimilate. The indigenous peoples of Europe are subject to rape gangs, beatings, and second-class citizenship now, because the European Union has made Mohammedans a protected class,
right,
and set up a two-tiered system whereby there are protective laws for the Mohammedans and not for the Europeans. As far as what he calls radicalism goes, that's what you and I and folks in the chat would call sovereignty, national sovereignty.
Yep.
He is after a one world state, certainly a one Europe state in this instance. And the radicalism that he's talking about is when these nations say, no, we want to be France, we want to be Sweden, we want to be Austria. Believe it or not, Austria, where Brussels is, the capital of the EU.
Correct.
These countries have been electing BZ right-wing leaders. In other words, leaders on the right who are anti-Europe. This has gone on in
yes.
Italy. This has gone on, and of course, let's not forget the Visegrad countries, the old Soviet satellite states, Poland, the Czech Republic. There are, the leaders of those countries in some cases are heroes.
Yeah. Oh God.
Because they've just walled off their country. They have a wall. They have a fence. They have fences, and they work very well. It's a huge contrast between life in those countries and life in the rest of Europe. Those countries the Visegrad countries do not have things like terrorist, truck barriers everywhere, because they don't need them, because the number of Mohammedans is vanishingly small compared to the rest of Europe. And the people of the rest of the Europe, BZ, to bring it back to where it needs to be, are the ones who are waking up, not the pro-Europe sentiment people. They're the paid protesters. They're the people who are out there making, to make money, and they're attacking ordinary people who have said, we've had enough of this. We've had enough of this massive regulation, and we've had enough of this homogeneity, which has stripped us of our identity as members, as citizens of our various countries. I will point out, excuse me, that a considerable number of people in the UK Labour Party, that's their equivalent of Democrats, by the way, voted to leave the European Union in 2016. So what this stuff that Soros is talking about, I mean, this is actually hilarious that he's saying this. He's waiting for the encouraging the wonderful pro-European sentiment to rise up and wake up. And folks, you don't know about this because you're not being told by the U.S. legacy media. But there have been people in their tens of thousands marching in Europe against the EU, against migration, against all of these things. Europe is blowing up. France looks like a cutscene from a dystopian video game. You think San Francisco is bad? You try Paris. Okay,
You've made an excellent point, and here's what I'd like to do. We got about another 2 more minutes before the bottom of the hour break. I'm going to continue to read George Soros. We'll take a break. I'll come back. I'll finish that portion of Soros that I'm interested in, and I'll tell you why here in just a moment. When we come back, though, after the break, and I finish this portion of the article by Soros, what I'd like to do is have Dave point out exactly what he just got through saying right now is, if you think that there aren't riots going on in the streets right now, you are desperately wrong. They're called the Yellow Vest riots, and they haven't just been going on for the past, week or so. They've been going on for months now. So after the article here, and after I finish that portion, I'd like Dave to weigh in after the break on the Yellow Vest riots, why it's important, where they came from, And this is information that you need to know. So I'm going to finish. Here's George Soros specifically addressing in his article, his opinion piece that came out yesterday. He's addressing this. It's under the aegis of UK and Brexit. And he writes, in the United Kingdom, too, an antiquated party structure prevents the popular will from finding proper expression. Both Labour and the Conservatives are internally divided, but their leaders, Jeremy Corbyn for Labour and Theresa May for the Tories, are so determined to deliver Brexit that they have agreed to cooperate to attain it. The situation is so complicated, well, he's got that right, that most Britons just want to get it over with, although it will be the defining moment and the defining event for the country for decades to come. I got to agree with him for that, too. But the collusion between Corbyn and May has aroused opposition in both parties, which in the case of Labour is bordering on rebellion. The day after Corbyn and May met, May announced a program to aid impoverished pro-Brexit Labour constituencies in the north of England. Corbyn is now accused of betraying the pledge he made at Labour's September 2018 party conference to back a second Brexit referendum if holding an election is not possible. Second Brexit referendum. Folks, hold on to that phrase. We're going to take a break. When we come back, second Brexit referendum. Dave is going to weigh in on that. And on the U.S. side over here, I'm going to make an analogy. In the meantime, we're listening to Dave Milner right here on the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct on the SHR Media Network. Don't go anywhere. Please come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is, in fact, the Bloviating Zeppelin, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. You can log in right there. Go to the chat room. We got a ton of people in chat right now. Great folks. You need to be there. Also, you can watch on the SHR Media YouTube channel or the SHR Media Facebook page. We are streaming live on both of those places right now. Tonight we're talking to Dave Milner, the unpleasant blind guy. Okay, he's blind, but he's not unpleasant. And tonight he's weighing in on the UK, the EU, and the political chaos that's going in right now. I was reading an article by George Soros, he of the multiple billions of dollars, massive leftist. And his final parting paragraph to that section about the UK and Brexit is this: the public is also becoming aware of the dire consequences of Brexit. The chances that May's deal will be rejected on February 14th, that's this Thursday, are growing by the day. That could set in motion a groundswell of support for a referendum, or even better, for revoking Britain's Article 50 notification. So stop. This is where Dave Milner weighs in, and I am pleased to have Dave here tonight. I set Dave up a little bit because I asked him, hey, can you... I wanted to have Dave here tonight because in many ways, in many aspects, okay, I grok the concept of some of the UK's laws, but I do not fully grok the concept of how the hell politics function in Parliament in the United Kingdom. And also, I mentioned earlier before the break that George Soros is pissed off because, he wants a second Brexit referendum. Well, this is where I throw it over to Dave. Dave, can you kind of let the folks know what's going on with regard to Brexit? What is a second Brexit referendum? What is Article 50? And what the hell is coming up on February 14th?
Okay. Just to give you a little background on all of this. Part of the reason that the Remainers, the people who voted Remain, and that includes the Remain support, includes what is going on in Parliament right now. They are basically a Remain Parliament, much like the U.S. House of Representatives, by the way, is because the EU depends heavily on the UK for money to keep it operating, because the UK and France and Germany are about the only three countries supporting the EU. Right now, according to figures that I have, Greece owes them, and by the way, the exchange rate is about $1.20 for every British pound. Greece owes 367 billion pounds. Ireland owes 865 billion pounds. Spain owes over 1 trillion pounds. Italy, ditto. So big money is involved. Now, the vote will be in the EU Parliament. This isn't the Brit Parliament. This is the EU Parliament. The vote on the 14th, and I'm pretty sure that they're probably going to vote against the deal that Theresa May had set up. Part of this deal, these are just some bullet points of the deal itself.
Okay.
Okay. Now, some of this is the deal that Theresa May, which was defeated in Parliament, but she resurrected some of it. So some of this will be in her current deal. She wants a common rule book, which would keep the British producers bound by EU rules on goods, including farmers. Okay. And Parliament would oversee the rules, but deciding not to abide by them would have, quote-unquote, consequences. That would mean that the EU could keep on fining the UK for not following the EU's rules, even though Brexit had taken place. There would be a joint UK-EU committee to oversee and rule on disputes, but these would be settled based more on the EU's rules than anywhere else. The UK would basically stay in the EU's customs union, which would basically mean that trade would work the same. It wouldn't be trade, like, for instance, between the UK and, France, or, let's say the UK would not, under this deal, be able to just approach Spain and say, hey, we want to buy some Spanish wine, okay? So let's make a deal. They wouldn't be able to do that. And other things of that nature. The deal she wants to make is what I call BINO. It's Brexit in name only. This is not what the people voted for.
All right.
The people voted to leave the European Union, which means they voted to leave the rules and regulations. They voted to leave the EU laws, which say that they have to accept X number of migrants.
Right.
So what May is proposing is massively unpopular with the people. In fact, one member of her cabinet said, you have a leave population now and a Remain parliament being the UK parliament. So unless she comes away with a no-deal Brexit, which means a Brexit not including all of these little things that will keep the UK actually tied to Europe, the people are not going to be happy. The people voted for no deal. They voted to leave. But being the politician that she is, and having supported the Remain campaign as she did, she's going to go for this BINO thing. Now, I want to stress one other thing, BZ, because this is what basically happened. Before 2016, before June 2016, and the vote to leave the EU, there was a massive campaign against leave, and this was posted, a lot on government-funded TV services and things of that nature, places like the BBC and places like that.
Okay.
People were told that, just as people were told in the United States, who were about to vote for Trump, people were told, well, if you vote this way, if you vote to leave, then you're a racist, you're an Islamophobe, you're a xenophobe.
Right.
All of these impressions, you're just a bad person if you vote leave. And all sorts of chaos is going to happen. I almost wish you had that little snippet from Ghostbusters, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. That's what they predicted before the vote actually happened. And the left thought that they had the people convinced. They thought that they had the people convinced to vote Remain, and then the whole issue would just go away. That didn't happen. Just as in the United States in 2016. 2016 was a watershed year.
Yes, it was. Yes.
Just as in the United States, the people voted differently, and they were propagandized by the left. And now the left one of the things that the left wants in case of of May's proposal being defeated is a second referendum. Just as in the United States, they want a do-over until they get what they want. We've seen this, BZ, since the 2000 election over here. Let's have a recount. No, let's have a second recount. No, let's have a third recount.
Right.
It took the Supreme Court to say enough bloody recounts. And yet after that, in the United States, you saw things like, what I call the recount shuffle that the left always gets into. And if there are enough recounts, somehow, magically, they seem to win. And everyone pretty much suspects that part of the reason for that is because they have some fun with ballot boxes or fun with losing some ballot boxes. It's, let's have do-overs until the left gets what they want. And that's what a second EU referendum is all about. That's what a second Brexit referendum is about. Go ahead.
Well, basically, hang on just one second. I'm having a slight technical detail here. I do want to interject this. As you mentioned,
human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
And that's what would occur. And I'm glad you pointed that out. So please continue.
But really what would occur would be just that the UK would, and I have to stop and say this. This may be the only thing that President Obama did that I ever approved of. He went over to the UK and voted, and well, not voted, but and encouraged them to remain in the EU and all of that.
Okay.
But the moment the vote, the moment that the results of the vote became known, and I stayed up all night watching the results of that vote. The moment the results of that vote became known, his administration came out and said they were the first ones that came out and told the UK, "Hey, we're open for business. We'll be very happy to deal with you. You won't be at the back of the line like we said before. No. We'll deal with you on terms of equality, and come on, deal with us. We're ready to do business." And that's all that the people of the UK want. They want everything to go back to the way it was.
And they want the pound, correct? They want to go back to the pound.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, they still have their pound. They still use the pound. That was the one thing that the EU wasn't able to squirrel out of them. They don't have to use the euro. They can still use the pound. But they want things to go the way that they were before Prime Minister Ted Heath signed the accords that put them in what in the 1970s was the European Common Market, which was just supposed to be about trade, not about overreaching rule. And just go back to the way things were to make things simpler. But, of course, the left is saying there'll be chaos. Planes from the UK won't be able to land in Europe and things like that. I guarantee you, BZ, if a no-deal Brexit were to happen, everything could be smoothed out within 2 months. Absolutely. But that's not what the left is saying.
Okay, so February 14th is a vote that's going to occur in Brussels, which is the seat of the European Union. There is not yet scheduled a vote, a separate second vote, a referendum for Brexit. And I made the point in chat. I said it's like leftists saying, okay, I know Donald Trump won in 2016, but we're not convinced that you were really serious about that. So tell you what, we're going to go back and have a second vote just to make sure that you really were serious about voting Donald Trump. So the question is, I think the big overarching question at this point, and this is where I really need your input and your help and assistance on this, is it's not getting to a vote to the populace just yet. Would it be true to say that a number of factions are still arguing in Parliament as to what Brexit will even look like? Is that accurate?
Okay. You asked me in Facebook chat earlier today if I could describe the UK government.
Yeah.
And
yes, I did.
my best description of the UK government, especially at this point, and is Byzantine.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be just a standard democracy, in the vein of the rest of Europe and things of that nature. It's not a republic; it's a democracy, which is different. You would think that, for instance, conservatives who are supposed to equal what are supposed to be our Republicans would be for leave, so that their nation could have sovereignty, and you would expect that Labor, who are like equivalent to Democrats, would be for remain, and you would expect that, but that's not the case. There are quote unquote rebels on both sides in the parliament, and there are rebels on both sides in Theresa May's cabinet. She has hard Brexiteers in her cabinet, and she also has Remainers in her cabinet. One of the surprises, and I still can't. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this one. Is that her the head of the UK Home Office, who is a cabinet member over there, it's equivalent to Homeland Security.
All right.
Is Sajid Javid. Yes, he is a Mohammedan, and yet he is for leave. I still haven't been able to figure that one out. And there are aspects of the UK government that I don't know. As an American, I can't figure out. So you have chaos over there, and a lot of them don't even know what the as you said, what Brexit would look like. One of the biggest stumbling blocks is what they call the Irish backstop. Now, to you and me, a backstop is something that's there behind behind the catcher on a baseball field,
right?
to catch the ball. But what this basically is a dispute over the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. It is safe to say that the Europeans want a hard border between these two portions, Northern Ireland being part of the UK and Ireland being its own nation. The EU wants a hard border. This, however, would violate the Good Friday Agreement, which put almost to a complete stop all of the IRA terrorism that was occurring in the UK, or had been occurring in the UK at that point for about 30 years. If the EU is allowed to create a backstop, there is serious concern that could happen again. And if you ask anyone who grew up in the UK or anyone who listened to news from that era of the 1970s, there were terror attacks going on all the time. There were bombs going off,
right?
All over the place.
Those were called the Troubles. I'd like to insert, this is a perfect time for this right now. I just found a cut from Nigel Farage, and he's talking about Ireland and the EU. And this is Nigel Farage. After we play this cut of Nigel Farage weighing in, I'd like you to explain to people, if you could, because we're getting kind of close to the top of the hour. Explain, folks, who is Nigel Farage, what he has to do with Brexit, and what is UKIP or UKIP in relationship to him. Okay, first this audio cut from Nigel Farage.
Did you ever consider how all of this would impact Ireland, or did you, and do you care?
Oh, I do, and I think ultimately Ireland will leave the European Union too. I don't think the European Union will even exist in 10 years' time.
The latest poll figure I have on that is 88% of people who were asked here in Ireland said that they would stay in the EU. So that's not going to happen, and it's not on the cards.
No, just as you were all going to vote for the Lisbon Treaty, but in the end you didn't. You voted against the Lisbon Treaty. You were forced to vote again. The European Union
hang on a second. The Lisbon Treaty was not passed the first time. You are right. It was renegotiated. Ireland won some reassurances on sovereignty. So what was presented to the Irish people the second time was not, in fact, the same.
Yeah, well, it was all completely meaningless anyway. Look, all over Europe, what you are seeing is the growth of real opposition to this project. The idea that Europe's laws should be set and made by a group of unelected old men in Brussels, it's an idea whose time has passed. And I don't just want the UK out of the European Union, I want Europe out of the European Union. I want a Europe of sovereign democratic states working and trading closely together. But this current system will not stand the test of time, believe you me.
But I think that's a perfect cut. I think that sums things up. Dave Milner, your thoughts on that?
Well, my feelings are mixed about Nigel Farage. He we do have him to thank for being a major force behind Brexit, and that is not to be sneered at. However, he is a politician. He does want power, and he wants power to the expense, in another vein, of the people of the United Kingdom. His opposition to civil rights leader Tommy Robinson being one of the major things, and his closer relation with Mohammedanism being another. Now, you asked about UKIP. I see we have 5 minutes left.
Right.
UKIP is the United Kingdom Independence Party.
Okay.
It is currently led by Gerard Batten. You could call them the equivalent to the Freedom Caucus in the old U.S. Congress, and the very few that are still left in this Congress. They are really the few conservatives that are left. The only problem here is that they have only one representative in the UK Parliament. They have less than 15 in the House of Lords over there, basically their Senate. All right, so there's a lot of good sentiment behind them. A lot of the people like them, but as I said before, the UK political structure is very Byzantine, and they do not take kindly to the working class people. Remember, there is still a class system over there, whether they say there is or not, getting all uppish and trying to tell the moneyed political class how they want things. This is very similar to the political class here in the United States. So you have this schism, and I don't see it getting any better. In fact, I see it getting considerably worse. Gerard Batten is a good one to follow. I would tell people, if you want a little bit more information on, for instance, the Yellow Vest protesters, go to Paul Joseph Watson's YouTube page and look at his story. The truth, what they're not telling you about Yellow Vesters, that will give you a very good idea of what's going on. There is a freedom movement. I will say this, BZ.
Yes.
It is going on in Europe, Eastern Europe, Western Europe. It's going on in South America. I know you're going to talk some about that in the next hour. And it is still going on here in the United States. And I want to say to people, yes, it may get dark for a while, but don't lose faith. We win in the end. We've seen the back of the book. We will win in the end. And there is still, despite everything you hear, there is still room for hope.
A little bit of a wrap-up about the Yellow Vesters that you just mentioned. And this began initially in France. In summary, for those who are not aware, the Yellow Vest movement began in France, and the Yellow Vest represents, I guess you could say, the common man. In France, for example, in many European countries, you're required to carry... In the UK, you're required to carry a yellow vest in your car if you have car trouble, etc. So all cars have them. The yellow vest represents the lowest level, the worker, the average Joe and Jane in France, in the UK, and that's why they donned the yellow vests. Initially, the riots began because Emmanuel Macron was going to up the gas taxes, and the common people, the little people, the peasants, were thinking, we're having a hell of a time trying to make it now. And so you're going to up the gas taxes, and what? We're not going to be able to drive our cars. If we have businesses, we're not going to be able to maintain our businesses. This is stupid. And the riots commenced. But it was essentially everything but that. It was a mass protest against basically the oppressive thumb of the EU itself, stemming out of Brussels, Belgium. People had enough. And migration. So, in summary, we got 2 more minutes left. Dave Milner, tell us basically what you think about Brexit, the Yellow Vests. Kind of tie this all up, if you will, please, sir.
Well, as I said, it's part of the freedom movement that's going on in Europe and again in South America. The Yellow Vest, as you said, the Yellow Vest protests have been going on for about 3 or 4 months now.
Yes.
And they are going to continue. This isn't going to die down or go away. We've already seen yellow vest protests to a point where Macron actually called out elements of the French army. And I just want to say that going right back to that Soros article that you read, what Soros is talking about, the means that Europe can use to make people do things, that's called the European Army, and that has been proposed by Macron and by others. But the freedom movement is there, and it ain't going away anywhere. And I want to thank you, BZ, for allowing me to come on your program and talk about this. This may well become a future episode of The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And I appreciate you very much, and I can't wait to hear about the second hour. I'm sure you're going to tear it up as usual.
Thank you very much, sir. And again, before we take off and go to the break, Dave Milner, the Unpleasant Blind Guy, who A, is blind, B, but not unpleasant. Tell folks where you can be read and found, please.
Okay, I'm Dave Milner on Facebook, the Tea Party Community, and MeWe, and Magador on Trumptown and Gab. And my show comes on at 1 p.m. Eastern on at the SHR Media at the SHR Media Unpleasant Blind Guy page on Spreaker.com. And I also have new shows at midnight on Saturdays, midnight Eastern. And right now I'm doing a series on Brexit with the help of my colleagues over at EDL Radio. That's the English Translate Radio show, where I can be heard Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Blog Talk Radio. That show is hosted by Jeff Mitchell, a fantastic patriot. And again, Mark, thank you for having me on.
Thank you, sir. You are one busy guy. Folks, that was Dave Milner, the Unpleasant Blind Guy. When we come back, we're going to talk about basically how this affects the United States and what's going on, the crazy political chaos that's going on here in the United States of America. Don't go anywhere, please.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is hour 2 right now on BZ's Jesus. Okay, let's try this again. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. That's me. And it is, let's see, 9:06 on the far left coast. That means it's 12:06 on the far right coast, which is why I thank Dave ever so kindly for being here tonight, because he was talking from 11 p.m. to midnight on the East Coast up in Vermont, so I thank him for that. And I bet he's got just a little bit of snow up there right now. And, of course, it's 1759 and 1726.725 subparagraph 4 sector C Bolivian time. I could never explain for you Bolivian time at all. What we're going to do is I want to go into 2 what I consider to be important news pieces.
I believe that this nation should commit itself.
And after this,
before this decade is out,
I'm going to be going into happy stories. So if you thought that there weren't going to be any happy stories, well, you're wrong. There will be. But first, 2 very important pieces of news that I want to regale to you.
We begin bombing in 5 minutes. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I will build a great wall. Stand by for news.
And here's something I found that I haven't seen on any other program, but I need to regale it to you right now. This story came out 2 weeks ago, and I haven't seen anything acted on it yet. It's because there's so much political stupidity occurring currently in the United States. But this is an article that I think people need to be aware of. This is from the nationalsentinel.com. And the headline goes like this. Israeli intel minister says country is in an open conflict with Iran as he sends final warning before all-out war. And I'll bet you that you haven't heard things like this. The story starts, Israel's intelligence minister has claimed that his country is now in open conflict with arch-rival Iran and that Jerusalem would not hold back militarily if the Islamic Republic continued efforts to widen its footprint in neighboring Syria. His comments come on the heels of a major air assault on Iranian targets near Damascus earlier this week, following Israel's public announcement and acknowledgement of the attack. In the past, the Jewish state has never officially made such acknowledgments when its forces have struck targets inside Syria. This is very serious information. The policy has changed, Intelligence Minister Israel Katz said regarding the reversal. This is an open confrontation with Iran. When we need to step up, we will step it up. This was a clear message to the Iranians, Katz noted further. We won't allow their enrichment and their entrenchment in Syria. The strikes came after Iran's Quds Force, an expeditionary arm of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, launched a missile at the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights, reports noted. For the past few years, Iran has been steadily increasing its presence in Syria, and the approval of President Bashar al-Assad in exchange for assisting his forces with suppressing a civil war that has dragged on for some 7 years. The reason I'm reading that for you right now is because things are stepping up in Israel. Be aware of that. Be aware of the Middle East. Be aware of the conflicts. As Americans, we tend to keep our news close and inside, and we're watching TV, Survivor, or The Voice, or whatever the hell it is that really doesn't mean much of anything. But we must be aware of what's happening across the pond. And again, that's another reason that I had Dave Milner on tonight. We need to be aware of what's going on. This is another story that you haven't heard about that I believe that you do need to be aware of. This is from the Washington Free Beacon. And it's incredibly important because everyone is saying right now, oh, Russia is the number one enemy of the United States. I submit, not particularly. I submit China is right up there, if not surpassing Russia. However, there's this story from the freebeacon.com, Washington Free Beacon. The headline is, China and Russia are building a super EMP bomb for blackout warfare. And if you don't know what an EMP is, the EMP is the electromagnetic pulse. I'll get to the story in just a moment. Is the electromagnetic pulse that occurs when a nuclear weapon detonates. Most nuclear weapons are not detonated on the ground. They're detonated in the air, in air bursts. And they tend to reflect off the atmosphere. And they have a great tendency to fry electronic items. Transistors, computers, everything is digital today. The reason that they're working on EMP bombs and EMP bursts is because if you can screw with a country's satellite system or the manner in which it conducts its digital business, you've pretty much toppled that country. That's why EMP is so incredibly important. The headline goes, several nations, including China and Russia, are building powerful nuclear bombs designed to produce super electromagnetic pulse EMP waves capable of devastating all electronics, from computers to electric grids. The electric grid turning on a switch. What if we did that one day and nothing happened? For hundreds of miles, according to a newly released congressional study. A report by the now-defunct Commission to Assess the Threat to the United States from EMP Attack for the first time reveals details on how nuclear EMP weapons are integrated into the military doctrines of China, Russia, North Korea, and the country we were just talking about, Iran. The report discloses how those states could use EMP attacks in theaters of battle in the Middle East, Far East, Europe, and right here in North America. Nuclear EMP attacks are part of the military doctrines, plans, and exercises of Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran for a revolutionary new way of warfare against military forces and civilian critical infrastructure by cyber sabotage and EMP, the report states. This new way of warfare is called many things by many nations. In Russia, China, and Iran, it is called sixth-generation warfare, non-contact warfare, electronic warfare, total information warfare, and cyber warfare. Nuclear electronic warfare is also called blackout war because of its effects on all electronic devices. Imagine. And people have written about this. There's a dude named William Fortune, Fortschen, who wrote 1 second after an EMP attack. Can you imagine what would happen if our electrical grids were taken down. And the sad truth is, if you examine the situation, very few, if any, that I'm aware of our electrical system and grids are EMP protected. So this is not just a passing affair. This is something that could occur. And again, it's something that I believe that everybody needs to be aware of. We're going to change our tact here a little bit. I tried to play this last Thursday night, and it's so good, and it made me laugh that I have to play it again. Because, with humor is only funny because so much of it is true.
While Republicans promise freedom, we promise free stuff.
Oh, sorry. Let's start this bad boy over. I think you know where I'm going already, don't you? Yeah. Let's play it and see.
Hi. I'm a spokesperson for the Democratic Party, and I'm here to tell you why you need to vote blue this November. Democrats are the party of love and tolerance.
Right.
We promote inclusion and acceptance, peace, and goodwill. Republicans don't care about any of these things. They just want to talk about record unemployment, the economy, and keeping communities safe. Fascists. Democrats have positive, practical priorities, like abolishing the Electoral College, eliminating due process, and banning hate speech. These are the values of the American people. Well, at least Americans that live in San Francisco and New York.
Yeah.
Republicans often use fear-mongering rhetoric like Constitution or liberty. Democrats condemn such language as divisive and instead focus on more unifying topics like repealing the Second Amendment or kneeling for the national anthem. Democrats are the party of equality, so much so that we insist upon unconditionally believing women and disbelieving men because, well, feminism. If you ask us to explain this logically, we will scream in your face and call you a misogynist.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Republicans want to take away a woman's sacred right to choose to have her child decapitated inside the womb and torn apart limb by limb with forceps. Democrats celebrate the right to violently murder your child because we're compassionate. Democrats believe that women are powerful and independent. They are also helpless victims of the patriarchy who require government intervention to succeed. Any woman who disagrees with us on this is a self-hating, stupid bimbo. And it's time someone was finally brave enough to say this. Republicans are racist. Democrats have the same positive message for minorities that we have for women. You're a victim, and you're useful to us. If you disagree, we'll insult your intelligence, but it's for your own good. Republicans want to stop certain people from coming into this country. They cite the infiltration of gang violence or opioids or sex trafficking as reasons to stop illegal immigration. But Democrats accept these as the natural consequences of opening up the borders, which, of course, is the more loving thing to do. Democrats recognize that the key to a better tomorrow is to look forward, not backward. That's why we reject capitalism and all of its greed and instead opt for socialism, which has worked so well every time it's been tried.
Right.
Democrats are the party of the common people, the poor and the marginalized, the weak and defenseless. While Republicans promise freedom, we promise free stuff. That's how we win over young people.
Thank you.
Our goal is to make the government work for you so you don't have to work at all. Republicans are always pushing religion in our faces. We reject their bigotry. Religious people are idiots. Democrats would much rather you sacrifice yourself on the altar of progressivism.
Thank you.
The truth is, as the party of empathy, we're just better than everyone else. That's why we spend so much time telling people who don't align with our agenda that they're not just wrong, but that they're bad people. We still haven't figured out that this condescension is what lost us the 2016 election. Nevertheless, we're confident that through censorship, emotional manipulation, and continued bullying that we'll eventually get our way. Why? Because we care about you. So much so that we're willing to wear you down until you fear getting silenced, doxxed, or fired because you don't agree with our agenda. That's love. I'm the spokesperson for the Democratic Party. Vote for us in November.
And isn't it funny how it was true then in November of last year, and it's true now and become even more unsettlingly true? Right now, we're going to pause for the Ron Edwards notebook. When we come back, we're going to have some happy stories.
The leftist goons of death strike yet another blow against our unalienable rights. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards on today's page from the Edwards Notebook. The Word of God and our Bill of Rights proclaim our unalienable rights, among them our life. However, the harbingers of death and doom are on a mad mission to destroy our inalienable rights and quality of life. Just recently in Vermont, so-called lawmakers introduced a bill that, if passed, would permit abortions at any time during pregnancy as a fundamental right to unlimited abortions, while at the same time proclaiming that a fertilized egg, embryo, or a baby do not have any rights at all. To add insult to this injury, Vermont lawmakers want to ensure that a person can purposefully refuse contraceptive, get pregnant, and terminate the baby anytime. Also, anyone can freely kill babies via abortion, whether they are medically qualified to or not. This bill also was designed to ensure that abortions on demand will remain available in Vermont, even if abortion is abolished nationwide. The refusal to recognize the rights of babies, embryos, and fertilized eggs is a direct affront to God, who gave us unalienable rights and whose Son, Jesus, died so that we could live eternally if we choose Him.
Fasten your seatbelts.
It's going to be a bumpy ride. I'm Ron Edwards.
Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
And that was Ron Edwards. Well, maybe people wonder, hey, what time is it?
It's time for happy stories and good times.
Here's what I consider to be the happiest story yet. And I just picked this up right after I ripped this from Dr. Fong's classique radio travesty of the air, what I used to call the Dr. Fong rough and ready rip and read news. And I ripped it to read it tonight for you right now. Just before I got here, I found this. I think this is a happy story. This is from the American Mirror, and it goes like this. After El Chapo conviction, by the way, he was convicted today after about a week's deliberation, and he didn't look really very happy about that, because I think he's going to spend the rest of his life in the Supermax in Florence. Anyway, the American Mirror says, wouldn't this be wonderful if it were true? Check it out. After El Chapo conviction, seized $14 billion. Could it build the border wall? Could El Chapo's seized drug money be used to build the border wall? Is that not a concept maybe whose time has come? I think it is. Can you imagine when President Trump said, and I'm going to make the Mexicans pay for it. I'm going to make Mexico pay for it. Let's see. Who's El Chapo? Oh, that's right. He's a Mexican. Oh, and what kind of money are we talking about? Oh, hang on. Sit down, because I'm going to get to that. The article continues. That's one of the questions many are asking on Tuesday following news of the former drug kingpin being found guilty on all counts today. Mexico's most notorious drug kingpin, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, will spend the rest of his life in prison after a jury found him guilty on all 10 counts following a 3-month trial. Now, according to Breitbart, the United States has seized, again, boy, I really hope you're sitting down, because this is the crux of the biscuit. The United States has seized $14 billion from the former drug lord, which gave Senator Ted Cruz a brilliant idea. The Texas Republican introduced the Ensuring Lawful Collection of Hidden Assets to Provide Order, El Chapo. It actually matches El Chapo, the El Chapo Act, in April 2017, which calls for the use of the $14 billion seized from the cartel drug lord to be used to pay for the wall. $14 billion will go a long way toward building a wall that will keep Americans safe and hinder the illegal flow of drugs, weapons, and individuals across our southern border, Cruz said in a statement. Ensuring the safety and security of Texans is one of my top priorities, he said. Ted Cruz said, using criminally forfeited assets from El Chapo and other Mexican cartel members and drug dealers can, quote, offset the wall's cost and make meaningful progress towards achieving President Trump's stated border security objectives. listen, as far as I'm concerned, that's a happy story. Hey, how about another one? Here's one from Life Zet. The article is, the headline, Michael Moore's TV show, be ready to guffaw. Michael Moore's TV show canceled even before one episode airs. I'm sorry, I like this shit. The Liberal director Michael Moore was supposed to have his own show on TBS coming up with a significant amount of editorial control over it. Well, tough luck. The program has been canceled before even one episode could air. Last week, the network axed his upcoming docuseries, TV Nation, initially called Michael Moore Live from the Apocalypse. TV Nation is the same name as a satirical news show on Fahrenheit 11/9 filmmaker, the movie that he starred in from 1994 to 1995. When Moore signed the development deal in May 2017, he told Deadline the series was supposed to center around a raucous gathering place for millions of our fellow citizens in desperate need of a break from the screaming pundits and the purveyors of alternative facts. Our show will be dangerous and relentless, and it will be the destination for those who want to know what's really going on and what they might be able to do about it. Does this sound anything, folks, like Air America? Here's another great story. This is from the Daily Mail, which is why I go across the pond to get stories just for you. Trump's approval rating amongst likely voters soars to his best in 23 months, at 52% after State of the Union address as border wall shutdown talks intensify. Did you read that particular article or know something about that? No, you heard that he had about a 78%. Now this is about himself. Now this is a bad story, but it's a good story. But it again illustrates how stupid leftists are, and it provides a little bit of a transition. Don't go away just yet, because if you think that I'm done with happy stories, unfortunately, you'd be wrong. I do have more happy stories after this, but this starts out not quite so happy, but ends up okay. California Fire Department evicts beloved cat after complaint. Now, California Fire Department, yes, California. A California fire department had to evict their beloved cat after it received a complaint about the animal being around fire equipment and supplies. Edna the cat was evicted from Station 49 of the San Francisco Fire Department. Get the connection? California, San Francisco. After the city received an anonymous complaint about the animal's location near medical equipment. Edna was taken in by Station 49 of the San Francisco Fire Department 5 years ago when she visited the facility as a feral cat. She's popular among the station and on Instagram. Listen to this. Check this out. This is great. Take care, Mary. See you later. On Instagram, Edna the cat has 34,000 followers. The city received an anonymous complaint about Edna, a tortoiseshell cat. According to a statement from the fire department, the station in question is not an actual fire station, but rather the ambulance deployment facility, which houses medical supplies and other equipment. And so, following the complaint, they had to get rid of Edna the cat. However, this is the good part. This is the happy story part. The department said on Monday, yesterday, that a member of its ambulance staff already adopted Edna to live with their family. Oh yeah, here's another happy story for those of you who happen to believe in the Second Amendment. This is from Breitbart.com. Headline, suspects allegedly point gun at woman's head, then they get shot dead. Suspects who allegedly entered a Brevard County, Florida home Thursday and pointed a gun at a woman's head were shot dead by the woman's son. News 6 reported that 20-year-old Alvin Smalls and 18-year-old Amir Rashad Lynn allegedly broke into the house at a time when the mother's son was in the house asleep. The son awoke to strange sounds only to discover the suspects allegedly had his mother at gunpoint. The son shot the suspects. Smalls died in the home, and Lynn fled, only to die later at a hospital. That's what you get for doing silly, stupid, and fattening shit. That is why that happens to be a happy story. Here's another happy story. I found this one just today. This is from Fox News. The headline goes like this. And you know, Schadenfreude, when you listen to me, you already know what Schadenfreude is. Let's see, what do I got? I got one more minute. This story should cover it, and then we're going to come back. I think I got one or two more happy stories, and then we're going to get into some other zaniness. The happy story goes like this. At least a dozen newspapers drop a syndicated cartoon over vulgar anti-Trump hidden message. This is a cartoon that your kids could read. Isn't this grand? A political cartoonist. Oh, wait until you hear. At least a dozen newspapers pulled the syndicated cartoon non sequitur over a message to President Trump in Sunday's edition, according to reports. A message to President Trump. I wonder what that could be. Andrews McMeel syndication publishes non sequitur in more than 700 newspapers and apologized Monday for cartoonist Wiley Miller's comic strip. Wiley Miller, the cartoonist of non sequitur. They wrote, "We are sorry we missed the language in our editing process," the company said in a statement, according to the Washington Post. "If we had discovered it, we would not have distributed the cartoon without it being removed. We apologize to non sequiturs, clients, and readers for our oversight." Well, what could be so terrible? A message to Donald Trump? What could be so terrible that the cartoonist put it in there? As The Hill reported, a scribbled message in one panel of that day's cartoon appeared to include I guess you could call it a coarse message, clearly visible in the bottom right-hand corner. And it read, "We fondly say, go fuck yourself to Trump." Now, Miller, who didn't return Fox News' request for comment on Tuesday afternoon, appeared to acknowledge the message in a now-deleted tweet that said, "Some of my sharp-eyed readers have spotted a little Easter egg. Can you find it?" And so he was serenely dumped by a number of newspapers. Here's another positive article, if you're talking about the Second Amendment. In Oklahoma, the headline goes, Oklahoma House Committee passes bill to end concealed permit requirement. Let's see. Idaho is a state that doesn't require a concealed permit to carry. Let's see. New Mexico or Arizona is also a place where you don't have to get a permit to conceal carry. And now apparently that's true in Oklahoma. The headline, Oklahoma House Committee passes bill to end concealed permit requirement. Oklahoma's House Public Safety Committee passed legislation this week designed to end the concealed carry permit required in the state. 71 Republic reported that the legislation, HB 2579, would make Oklahoma, the 15th. I was wrong. BZ. I take that back. Oklahoma will be the 15th permitless carry state. That would mean nearly a third of all states allow guns to be carried openly or concealed for self-defense based on the Second Amendment alone. Folks, I got to tell you, that is a happy story right there. Here's another one about Jennifer Lopez. I don't really much care about that. Here's a bit of a well, you have to consider the source, and you have to consider on where this source conducted broadcasting. And if you say, "Oh, BZ, what does this have to do with being happy?" Well, follow me. Listen to it. This is Senator Menendez. If I'm not mistaken, this is Senator Stolen Valor Menendez. And he's talking on CNN, and he's talking about illegal immigrants, and he's talking about drunk driving. And now listen to this, and you tell me whether you think that something like MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, I wonder what they would happen to think of this.
The Deputy Director of ICE says a cap on beds, in his words, would be, quote, extremely damaging to the public safety of this country. How do you respond?
The reason that they are already 8,000 over their budgeted amount, so they're violating the budget, is because of
Listen to this.
The president's zero tolerance policy that has turned everyone regardless of their record, into a criminal. For example, if you cross the border undocumented, he has now made you a criminal. He is creating that problem by turning people away who legitimately seek asylum. If a person has a driving while under the influence violation, he is now making that, saying that that's a criminal.
Are you fucking kidding me? Menendez is trying to say that a DUI committed by an illegal alien, we should just forget about it because, hey, he's committed one crime already, being here illegally, and add the DUI to that as well. Listen, if we exempt him from being illegal, because people can't be illegal, after all, then we clearly need to exempt them from DUI or anything like that, right? Doesn't that make sense? Yeah, that's how incredibly crazy leftists are. Just a hint as to how crazy they are. And this one I also consider to be a happy story. This is going to go down to South America. This is from Brazil. The headline, Brazil's new president to eliminate transgender pro-gay ideology from schools. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro announced plans last week to revise textbooks in public schools and eliminate references to homosexuality, same-sex marriage, and violence against women. There are also proposals to give the military control of some public schools. Once Bolsonaro took office, the Ministry of Education issued new guidelines for textbook publishers that erased references to gender ideology and sexism. You know what? If you want to teach that, you can teach it in a higher session. You can teach it at home. People can watch it on TV. But in my estimation, I don't think we need textbooks about that. Here's another story. This happens to be a Gallup poll. I'm full of them tonight. And the headline is this: Americans' confidence in their finances keeps growing. But of course, you didn't hear about this. Americans' optimism about their personal finances has climbed to levels not seen in more than 16 years, with 69% now saying they expect to be financially better off at this time next year. Here's another happy story, because finally a lot of things are being revealed, bit by bit by bit. This is from the New York Post. Quote, air quotes, impartial fact-checkers are revealing their partisanship against Trump. Well, you sensed that innately, didn't you? Of course you did. The story goes like this. If the media wants to challenge the context and politics of Republican arguments, that's their prerogative. There are plenty of legitimately misleading statements worthy of fact-checkers' attention, yet, with a veneer of impartiality, fact-checkers often engage in a uniquely dishonest style of partisanship, and State of the Union coverage gave us an abundance of examples of how they do it. Hyper-precision fact-checking that creates the impression that a Republican is misleading. Here's another one, fact-checking subjective political assertions. Yeah, like you can fact-check something subjective as opposed to something objective. Partisan talking point masquerading as a fact-check, and so on. What this is essentially saying is that the fact-checkers, maybe the fact-checkers themselves, need to be fact-checked. Now we're going to center. We're done with happy stories. There are more to come, but I'm starting to run out of time. And by the way, I blew through my bottom of the hour break, but that's okay, because it's my show, and I get to do that if I want. I found this story very interesting. The title of this, it's from the Foundation for Economic Education. And by now, most of the people who listen to this show already know who AOC is. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the 29-year-old ex-waitress who won a representative seat in New York and kicked out the highly entrenched New York Demorat that formerly lived there. And she's the one that's advocating for a Green New Deal, and she wants Demorat-Socialism. This story indicates the headline, What Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez Could Learn from G.K. Chesterton. G.K. Chesterton, he was an author, died in 1936, and H.L. Mencken died in 1956. Were kind of near contemporaries, but they were not kindred souls. One was an Englishman, and the other one was an American. One was a Catholic Christian, the other one a lifelong agnostic. One dubbed himself a distributist as opposed to a capitalist or a socialist, while the other one was an unabashed libertarian who defended capitalism and abhorred socialism. But when it comes to a subject that is very much the rage today, thanks to individuals like AOC and Bernie Sanders, Chesterton and Mencken were essentially on the same page. That subject was socialism, or rather, specifically, democratic socialism. They call it new packaging, same concept. The problems with socialism should be obvious given its historic failures. The problem with democratic socialism may be a little bit less obvious, but no less fatal. Once in power, democratic socialists cease to be democratic. Oh, not so, some say, while pointing to the governments of Western Europe. Not so, I respond, while pointing out that members of the European Union are capitalist countries with large welfare state components. Of course, those components are slowly strangling those countries, but that's a story for another day. The issue right here, is socialism. Perhaps today's democratic socialists, whether a youthful AOC or an aged Bernie Sanders, really are promoting nothing more than an enhanced, supercharged welfare state. But since they prefer to call themselves democratic socialists, let's take them at their word. And it's funny you should mention that, right? BZ, I happen to find, if I can cue it up here, I had a great... let's see if I've got it here. A great illustration, if I can find it, of socialism in Sweden. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to locate that right now. But it goes into why it is that Sweden, essentially, they were very, very socialist. And it ended up that they privatized a lot of things, which I found very amusing. Oh, you know what? Let's see, what do I have left? I got about 18 minutes left. This is too good to pass up. This is kind of out of sequence, but I'm going to go there anyway. Not long ago, earlier this week, or late last week, I think it was late last week, acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker was grilled by a committee, the House Judiciary Committee, if for no other reason, because he had only 6 days left to serve, and he was temporary. And Matthew Whitaker was sat in front of the House Judiciary Committee for the sole purpose of attempting to light his ass on fire. If you didn't hear some of his responses to the House Judiciary Committee, my guess would be that they received a lot more than they would have suspected. This is why some people say that Matt Whitaker is not that bright, blah, blah, blah. I believe that they're saying that because he's not from the East Coast, he's not from the Northeast, he dares to be from Iowa. Check out this audio cut. This is about 6 minutes, and I've never heard stuff like this before, which is why I play it for you now.
I've repeatedly tried to work with your office, first in delaying the hearing until February, and then in providing...
By the way, this is Representative Gerald Nadler. He's the chairman of the Judiciary Committee.
...you our questions in advance. I did this because the executive branch's own rules governing assertion of privilege, which were issued by President Reagan and have been followed ever since, say that ultimately it is up to the president to decide whether or not he wants to assert executive privilege. You cannot repeat forever that the president might want to assert privilege. I've given you a fair opportunity to prepare for the hearing and to speak with the White House in advance so that we could avoid this fight in the first place, but you don't appear to have done any of that. The department's failure to do its due diligence here, to me, is deeply troubling. I do not believe...
I got to tell you, if you could see this right now, Matt Whitaker looks really, really bored.
...that issuing a subpoena here would correct the problem, but I'm going to give you the opportunity to rectify the situation. After today's hearing, We will attempt to reach an accommodation with the department to obtain answers to these questions. As part of that process, I ask for your commitment to return for a deposition before this committee in the coming weeks, under oath, with an understanding that the transcript will be released to the public as soon as practicable thereafter. Any questions that are unanswered today or require consultation with the White House will be asked again at that proceeding.
By the way, Whitaker is there voluntarily. Just thought I'd tell you that.
And I expect either a clean answer or a proper assertion of privilege claimed by the President. I would ask members on both sides of the aisle to make those questions clear for the record so we know what must be addressed at the future proceeding. Now, in your capacity as Acting Attorney General, have you ever been asked to approve any request or action to be taken by the Special Counsel?
Mr. Chairman, I see that your 5 minutes is up, and so I'm here voluntarily. We have agreed to 5-minute rounds, and
the committee.
I think that's a fine place to end the 5-minute rule.
The committee will end. Will come to order. I will point out that we didn't enforce the 5-minute rule on Acting Attorney General Whitaker. We will.
I understand, Mr. Chairman. I was just saying there might be a good breaking point at that point for you.
No.
Classic.
The Attorney General was in the middle of saying something. Answer the question, please.
Regular order.
Should I ask the question? Okay.
Yeah,
in your capacity
please
as
ask
acting,
the question.
let me just repeat the question so people remember what we're talking about. In your capacity as Acting Attorney General, have you ever been asked to approve any request or action to be taken by the Special Counsel?
Mr. Chairman, I, as the Acting Attorney General, I am under the Special Counsel's rules. I am the person that is ultimately in charge of the investigation, and I have exercised that authority under the Special Counsel's regulations of the Department of Justice.
So I assume the answer is yes.
Regular order, Mr. Chairman.
I assume the answer is yes. You have been asked to approve a request or action, and you've said yes or no? In other words,
Mr. Chairman, I want to be very clear about what you're asking me. Are you asking me if I have asked the Special Counsel to do something?
Regular order, Mr. Chairman.
Is this whole thing? Well, I'm asking if I think my words were clear enough. Have you ever been asked to approve any request or action to be taken?
They don't know how to handle this guy
by the,
who's
Special
throwing
Counsel.
it back at him.
Last week, you commented on the status of the investigation, stating it was close to being completed, unquote. This was said despite the fact you recognized just moments before that it was ongoing, stating, quote, I really am not going to talk about an open and ongoing investigation otherwise, close quote. So all I'm asking you is, have you been asked to approve or disapprove a request or action to be taken by the Special Counsel?
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
I've asked the question.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Point of order is not in order until the question is answered.
We're not operating under the 5-minute rule anymore, then?
Point of order. The witness will answer the question.
I want to be very specific about this, Mr. Chairman, because I think it's going to allay a lot of fears that have existed among this committee, among the legislative branch largely, and maybe among some American people. We have followed the Special Counsel's regulations to a T. There has been no event, no decision that has required me to take any action, and I have not interfered in any way.
See, and that's the point of this whole thing. What they're trying to get him to say is that somehow he managed to interfere with Mueller because originally, a while ago, he disagreed and stated in public, essentially, that he disagreed with the Mueller investigation. They're trying to say that with 6 days remaining, that he's not fit to be Assistant Attorney General. This falls into the what the fuck category, and you can clearly see that they're screwing with this guy. Well, 6 days, that's just because they can.
Special Counsel's investigation.
Very good. Thank you. My time has expired. I now recognize the ranking member, the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, it is laying out exactly as we thought. This is my colleagues across the aisle. When we had questions about the FBI's operation and investigations, it was, stay away. We don't want to get close to Mueller. In fact, the chairman even said, is it no longer okay to wait for Robert Mueller? Well, it's no longer right. They got you in front of them right now, so get ready. This is all this is going to be, DOJ oversight. And it is. I'm just going to say it for a second. There is some things interesting here that you did point out in your opening statement that do need addressing. I think there's a lot of things, whether it be voting rights issues, whether it be civil rights issues and other things, and I get that. But I'm also going to deal with something that is directly under your oversight prohibition, Mr. Acting Attorney General, and we're going to talk about something I've written a letter about. And I believe that lying before this body or any body is wrong, especially under oath, and that's not the issue, but the issue is tactics. And a question is, were you aware of Roger Stone's indictment before it became public?
Congressman, that's as you know, an important question. It is also, Mr. Stone is part of an ongoing investigation, but I have, again, been briefed on the special counsel's investigation. That would have been that would have been considered a development that I would have been briefed on, and I was briefed on that.
And so basically all they did is try to hang this guy because they didn't care for him, they didn't like him, and therefore they were going to get rid of him as much as they possibly could. And that's exactly what they tried to do. I got 10 minutes. Doggone it. I am torn. I am duly torn because I want to go into a whole bunch of stuff about AOC, and I think I'm going to jump directly into this. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez represents she's a very poor representative. As an article points out, that she is the voice of an incredibly ignorant generation. This is very sad. The majority of American millennials today identify as socialist, and that's confirmed by a bunch of surveys by both Reason, Roop, and the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation. That's the bad news. The good news is that just 32% of millennials can define socialism. They don't know what it is. The frequently wrong, but just ask her, she is never in doubt, AOC, that Demorat from New York, is not just becoming, but now is the voice of one of the most ignorant generations extant. This is, on one hand, kind of a good thing. On the other hand, this is something amazingly startling. I want to play a cut for you and let you listen to her speaking her own words. This is her weighing in on what she considered to be, and I talked about this last Thursday, this is her weighing in on her Green New Deal.
And so we're here to say that small, incremental policy solutions are not enough. They can be part of a solution, but they are not the solution unto itself. There is no justice and there is no combating climate change without addressing what has happened to indigenous communities. That means
Indigenous communities like who?
Means that there is no fixing our economy without addressing the racial wealth gap.
Really, it's all about the racial wealth gap. That's the kind of ignorance that you get from AOC. She also does this. This is from Young Conservatives, News and Opinion. Ocasio-Cortez calls for eliminating deportations. Says, and again, a massively ignorant bent is this unit. Ocasio-Cortez calls for eliminating deportations, and she doesn't just say, no, she declares that Latinos are exempt from criminal and immigration laws. She said, and other far-left Democrats held a press conference on Thursday last week to attack the Department of Homeland Security and to call for their money to be defunded. They were there with immigration activists and talked about various cases of illegal aliens, including that of 7-year-old Jacqueline Call, who died shortly after she was picked up by the Border Patrol after illegally entering. That doesn't have a damn thing to do with the Border Patrol, by the way. And so she attacked the DHS over the death of the little girl. She shed her tears. Her death was not found to have anything to do with Border Patrol care or treatment. and her father said that he had no complaints about how the Border Patrol had treated them. However, she rallied against Donald Trump and the DHS and said that the DHS doesn't deserve a dime until they, quote, embrace immigrants. They don't deserve any money for their radical agenda. The DHS has a radical agenda. The DHS was approved by and created by both sides of the aisle, or it wouldn't be here today. Let's listen to what she says about some MS-13 members. As a matter of fact, let's see if I can cue this bad boy up. It may or may not go. Okay. Here we go.
Here, and we were hearing inside that Capitol the State of the Union. And the president said something. He said and spoke of the idea that he likes, quote unquote, legal immigration. But that is a lie. The president does not like any form of immigration. And now he is asking for $5 billion to continue to militarize and weaponize a force that has zero accountability,
Again, what she's doing, let me point this out immediately right up front. $5 billion is not for militarizing the border. It's not for any kind of military presence. It's for the wall. That's a lie. That's a lie, AOC. That's a lie.
Whose director and whose secretary has no idea when she goes in front of a hearing how many children are dying in her own care under her own watch, and they have the audacity to ask for more money to fund that? I don't think so.
And who put those parents and those children in jeopardy? It would be the parents themselves or the coyotes that have stolen children from others, representing that they belong to them in order to get into the United States. You ignorant, incredibly ignorant representative of a generation. You represent a generation, AOC, and you're doing it ever so incredibly poorly.
I don't think so. Not only will we not agree to fund that, but we're here to say that an agency like ICE, which repeatedly and systematically violates human rights, does not deserve a dime.
And that's funny because that also was created by the United States government. Isn't that weird? Also, during the State of the Union, you remember that Trump said essentially, we will not have socialism here. Basically, AOC is saying that Trump attacked socialism using Venezuela, just to confuse the public.
As Democrat from New York, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is a first-term congresswoman. She's among the highest-profile members of this freshman class. I should mention with her tonight is her guest, Ana Maria Archila. She's an activist who confronted former Senator Jeff Flake last year in an elevator.
Of course, an
she asked
activist.
Him to vote against.
Yeah. Okay, this is not going to play well. I can see that right now. That's too bad. This is a commentary from the Daily Wire. I've only got about 1 minute left. You know what? Okay. Damn it, Jim. I'm not going to have time to do this, and I won't be able to hang around very long. Let me tell you this. Number one, thanks for being here tonight. I greatly appreciate it. I need to let you know in advance that I'm going to be here tomorrow night for the Chat Show with Sackheads Clint. Unless something happens that I can't tell you about right now. But absent that, Sackheads Clint should be here, and I should be here tomorrow night for the Chat Show, the Sackheads Against Tyranny, starting at the same bat time, 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern. Now, Thursday night, this is a programming note. On Thursday night, I am not going to be here, and I'm letting you know up front, because Thursday night is Thursday itself is Valentine's Day. And Valentine's Day, by the way, happens to be my anniversary. So Mrs. BZ, the wifely wife, and I are going to a couple of different motels, and we're going to celebrate our anniversary. So I will be here tomorrow night, but I will not be here on Thursday night.
Monsieur!
So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I got to say, thank you ever so kindly. Thank you very, very much for being here tonight in the saloon. I want to say thank you very, very much to Dave MILNER for being here in the first hour. Dave is the unpleasant blind guy who, yeah, he's blind, but he's not unpleasant. And I want to thank you for listening to my show tonight, right here, live and direct on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP. You can also find me on Facebook, Bloviating Zeppelin, Biff Zeppa, and I also am on the SHR Media Facebook page. Promotional consideration by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And also by the Pratt & Whitney Engine Company. Thrust, you can trust. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team with whom I will definitely be consorting in less than an hour. Thanks again to Dave MILNER for being here in the first hour. Thanks to you for listening live. Thanks to you for being in chat. And everybody, thanks for listening in podcast. God bless. Take care. Good night. See you tomorrow night on The Shat Show.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.